All right, as promised, here we are today in Allentown at the MACK Truck Museum. How cool is this? There's a lot of cool stuff here that you guys are going to see today, and I'm excited. With me is Doug Maney. Doug is the curator here at the MACK Truck Museum. I'm going to give Doug a moment to introduce himself, and then we'll talk to Doug and find out what they got here at the museum to check out. Doug?
Hello. Thanks for coming in, spending a little time with us.
Thank you.
And welcome you to a little video on what happens here at the MACK Trucks Historical Museum. We are in Allentown. We're behind the Queen City Airport off of I-78, exit 57. We've been here in this facility since 2010. The museum was originated in Macungie, Pennsylvania in 1982, incorporated 1984. So we've been around a while.
Yeah.
Our records go back way beyond that. So our historical records go back to and include chassis build record for chassis number 3, which is about 1903.
Nice.
So we have nearly every chassis build record, most of the drawings, most of the information on products that were built since then.
Very cool. Now let's back up to the beginning here, Doug. Doug is obviously the walking encyclopedia for MACK Trucks, but we're going to get a brief history here before we go around the museum and check things out. So I do want to go back to the beginning, the formation of the company. While we know MACK Trucks is pretty much fully associated with Pennsylvania, it didn't start in Pennsylvania. Can you kind of give a brief rundown on how that happened?
Sure. The Mack brothers, the two brothers that formed the company, Jack and Gus, of course, they were born in Mount Cobb, Pennsylvania, up near Scranton. When they left home and got jobs, Gus ended up at a wagon builder in Brooklyn. Jack, he was the inquisitive one. He's the one that wanted to try to figure out how things worked, and he traveled. So he ended up running steam power, which was the power of the day. He worked on the the Delaware-Lackawanna Railroad, and building the railroad and operating railroad. He ended up on steamships taking goods to Central America. He ended up on the Panama Canal project. Steam power, steam shovels, everything was steam at that time. He contracted malaria. He recovered, and I think that was kind of the end of his traveling. He said, I'm going back to the United States. So he came back and joined his brother, Gus, in Brooklyn at the wagon builder. Because he was so mechanically inclined and so driven that way, he learned to use every piece of equipment in the shop. And they ended up buying that company. So through the 1890s, he drove the experimentation of self-propelled vehicles. He tried steam, he tried electric, and ultimately settled on the internal combustion engine, which in 1900 became the platform for the first Mack Brothers vehicle, Mack Brothers bus.
Very cool. And you said the bus. I do want to mention one thing I learned here, which I did not know, was their first piece of their first rig they built was a tour bus. It wasn't a truck, correct?
Yeah, sightseeing bus. They built in Brooklyn for 5 years, from 1900 to 1905, specifically buses.
Very cool.
Not till they moved to Allentown in 1905 did they start building trucks.
Very cool. Well, there's a brief history of how MACK Trucks got started, but now I want to jump to the museum. This is what his job is all about. And can you kind of give us a brief rundown of how you ended up getting this job and what your daily functions are here?
Okay. So as a child, I grew up in central Pennsylvania, in Pine Glen, right dead center of the state, in the coal mining and lumber industry. That's circled our town. I was influenced by trucks. Our family was in the coal industry, our family was in the trucking industry, and I just grew up with that. So that's what I knew. My brother ended up buying trucks, closing a body shop and buying trucks and going into trucking. Knew right then that I did not want to pursue that interest. I was really interested in drafting, design, engineering. So I went to school, got out of school, and got a job at Parrish in Reading, Dana Parrish, where I was a designer. Did that for a few years and ended up being a heavy equipment appraiser at an insurance company. So heavy equipment department, trucks, loaders, anything that nobody else wanted to handle is what I would go inspect and handle the claims on. The whole time I was doing the insurance work, I was a volunteer here at the MACK Trucks Historical Museum. We would have work days, we would work on trucks, we would move trucks, we would mess with displays, whatever. I got to know people, got to know the process, help them in many different ways with just different antique truck displays. I'm on the board of the Antique Truck Club of America, and it all kind of meshed so that when the curator was planning his retirement, 2015, he kind of pulled me aside and told me, and I shifted positions to accommodate myself, to accommodate my family into a little less stressed position into the Mack Trucks Historical Museum from the insurance industry.
Very cool, and here we are.
Yeah, my duties, basically, I manage the museum. Many curators, you look at curators of other museums, this one is very different. What my responsibilities are, we operate, we maintain every vehicle in the museum runs. I acquire trucks, I acquire parts, preservation of the history, preservation of the records. You don't just put a book from, a chassis build record book from 1910 on a shelf. That has to be in a cabinet where it's climate controlled and preserved. Drawings, microfiche, microfilm, 16 millimeter film. We had a bunch of that I had converted to digital, so they didn't go away. So the preservation efforts, promotion of the museum, the Facebook, the YouTube. There's many different aspects to my position. Going to events, going to shows, promoting the history of Mack. Last year, 125 years of Mack. I was very involved with that celebration. We had a great time doing it, and we've been really coming to be seen out in public and out in the community, the antique truck community and such, and we're growing quite well.
Very cool. Now, Doug, being the curator, is kind of the one handling all this today for the museum, but you do have some volunteers on board. Do you want to give them a shout out? Yeah,
we have staff members, about 12 staff members, as well as volunteers. So the staff members are phenomenal. I'm really the only one of the staff members that never worked for Mack. I worked in, around, and under them. So that's how I got my digs, my background. But so they are phenomenal. I think the average age right now, me included, of my staff members is about 77.
Okay.
So they've been around a long time, years and years, hundreds of years of experience with the product and the history. Volunteers. So we have volunteer work days, Tuesdays every week, and second Saturday typically of every month. We have volunteer work days. Members of the Antique Truck Club of America come in. And it may be that we're working on trucks, and maybe we're restoring truck, or maybe moving a display. You never know what we're going to get into, because what's happening that week, or what do we have to make room for, or what do we have to shift around. We shuffle vehicles as much as we can to keep the display fresh. Right now, this is a really exciting time for the museum, because we're looking at about 7 vehicles that we're acquiring.
Nice.
That will be ours. So that'll bring our number of our own vehicles to over 50.
Very cool.
So, space, yeah, it's hard to put a truck on a pallet rack, but we're doing everything we can do to make that happen and get some really beautiful and really unique vehicles.
Very cool. And along with the volunteers that Doug just spoke about, we mentioned about the records that you have from back to 1910, right?
Yeah.
I got to look at this. You guys are going to see that soon. We're going to take a look at that as well. But that's amazing to me. And obviously, you need a large staff to kind of oversee that, organize it, download everything onto the computer. And
yeah, I get scolded because I say the heart of the museum. The heart of the museum is the archive, and we have about 50 million pages of information that dates back to 1900 on Mack vehicles and the sister companies as well. Brockway. We have some Sauer, we have some Hewitt, but the bulk of it is Mack Trucks. That information is at our disposal to answer requests, to answer questions, and we answer about 1,000 questions a year from individuals, or somebody who's restoring a truck or maintaining a truck, or an author who is writing a book about trucking, or a model builder who is building a model of certain trucks, anywhere in between. And the questions from somebody could be, my dad had this truck, what model was it? With a picture. Or it could be, the bolt inside my transmission broke that holds that lever, or that fork. What size bolt is that? And we dig into the records and we can tell him exactly what bolt that was. We can give him the part number for it, and he can buy it, have it made, whatever. We can give him the drawing for it. Sure. That's the extent. That's what the staff does. And we also answer about 250, 300 requests from dealers who are working for their customers, who have maybe some new trucks, but also some older trucks. Old Macs don't die. They just get new drivers, okay?
Yeah.
That, they're trying to offer them service and keep their old trucks running. So the new computer systems don't retain information for some reason. I don't understand why, but they contact us for information on the historic vehicles. And I say a historic, it might be a 2000 that's purged from their computer system, but we have the hard copies.
Sure.
So we answer those requests. That's what the staff does. The volunteers, they help so much. There's so much stuff that would not be done here without volunteers. Moving of trucks and changing of tires, or brake systems, or overseeing a rebuild of an engine. I oversee it all, and I get my hands dirty. I dig into it, but I can't be doing it all the time. I have the other responsibilities to do. So I really rely on the volunteers who ultimately are friends.
Sure.
And the friends I have are just incredible, and they help us in so many different ways, from rebuilding brake system on a truck to bringing a forklift in to a telehandler to lift materials up to the second floor, which is 24-foot lift. All I gotta do is make a phone call. Or retrieving a truck from St. Louis. All I gotta do is make a phone call, and 3 days later the truck's here.
It's good to have that network. It keeps places like this thriving.
Incredible.
And one thing I do find fascinating is the building that we're currently in is a former testing facility that MACK Truck used. Can you kind of explain that briefly?
Yeah, so the museum is located in the the former Engineering Development and Test Center. Tucked back in here, like I said, behind Queen City Airport off of Lehigh Street. In 1975, it opened and was opened as the Engineering Development Test Center, circled by a 3/4 mile test track. What happened here was engineering was here. They would come up with the idea for a part. In the middle of the building was a machine shop and tool crib where they would build that part. The back part of the building, they would put that part onto a truck, and then they would bring it over to the B wing where we're at, and this is where that part would be tested.
Very cool.
So this room, we're standing in the main gallery now with the world's largest bulldog. This room was where destructive testing took place. So it was loud, it was noisy, it was very, very active in here, from road simulator of a full truck to an axle beam test where they would bend an axle to see how many bends it would take before it cracked, or door slam tests or hood slam tests, anywhere in between. Ultimately, that part that they made would end up running in the dyno room, and then around the track, and then out on the highway. That was the final test track for MACK, was from here up 309 to Hazleton, back down 81 to 78, 78 over into Jersey, and back to here. Real world conditions.
Yeah, very cool. Being here, knowing that the museum is located in a building that was formerly used, just adds to the whole experience. But
the building itself is a museum piece.
Yes.
And you'll see that when you come. You're going to see it today on some video, but from from the main gallery here with the steel plate in the floor, underneath that steel plate is 1,600,000 pounds of concrete that was used to hold that road simulator still.
Amazing.
To the dyno room, we call it the dyno, but it's the environmental test chamber. From -10 to 110 degrees in that space. And then, our crown jewel is the sound room, or the crown jewel box. We'll put it that way. It's the box for the crown jewel. Our crown jewel is our 1909 Mack Brothers bus,
which you'll see.
Yeah, but the room that it's in is the sound room, and it's just a phenomenal space.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, we could stand here and talk for hours about this stuff, but we wanted to give you a quick kind of rundown of what's going on here before we take you around. And Doug's going to give us an explanation of a couple cool things. And unfortunately, we won't be able to highlight everything because there's everywhere you walk here, there's something that you could stop and look at probably for like 10, 15 minutes.
For sure.
We'll try and shorten that up, and we'll give you a kind of a good idea of what's here. So when you come here and check this out, you know what to look for.
Sounds great.